Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. How you guys doing tonight? I had a couple of subscribers ask me to do a live stream tonight, so that's why I am here for you guys. Have a little discussion. How you doing, Library Lizard? Hey, Sunset, Patriot Preacher, how you doing? 3D Scout, how you doing? We are expecting a Captain Bart. We are expecting some pretty gnarly rain and stuff here the next 3-4 days. So we are looking at rain and then by Sunday snow. Oh, no problem, Sunset. That's what I'm here for. Help you guys out. Have a little chat. Hey, Monkey Food Garden. Hopefully you guys have it a little bit drier where you are. We have got an absolute muddy mess. We had probably a foot of snow on the ground and it's all melted in the last 2 days. We had some rain and now everything is just a terrible muddy mess. Pouring buckets there, Captain Bart, and that's probably what's heading for us here. Ooh, power's out. That's no good. Good to see you though, Candace. Glad you're here. Appreciate all you guys spending some time with me. Hey, Tyler. Yeah, that's what a couple people said that they were expecting nothing but rain, and we got it. I think they said 10 o'clock is when it's supposed to start here, because we're a little bit further north up in Michigan than some of the guys are. Yeah, wild ride next 2 days. Monkey Food Garden, same for us, and it has been a wild couple of days again. It's been it's just been crazy since the beginning of the year. Hey, Frontline Warrior, how you doing there, Mid Michigan? Neighbors, we're almost neighbors. Um, hey, we'll be there 1776. I got my 1776 shirt on underneath this. I don't know, you guys probably can't see it. It's probably down too low. My family got me a 1776 shirt for Christmas. It's the first time I got it out today, and I wore it. Balmy 29. I hate this kind of weather, like in January and February. You get rain, then it freezes. I don't mind snow, but that rain and then everything is soaking wet and then it freezes and everything's an ice rink. The roads were even icy this morning because it got down just below freezing last night. I had to go in. I'm still having dental issues, and the only time they could see me was 7 o'clock this morning. So when I got out, went to the dentist this morning. Of course, the dentist is close to where I live here, but the roads were just black ice everywhere. Hey there from Minnesota, driftless Lake Lizard. How you doing, Uncle Bumble? How you doing there, my friend? 72 in East Texas. Boy, it ain't going to be 72 here until probably late May, early June. Thoughts on the potential of China losing access to Venezuelan and Iranian oil due to U.S. intervention? Oh, I think it's extremely possible. I think that's probably the whole point. And I think the whole drug thing, that's just a cover story, because you know what? All the articles that I've ever read and everything that I've ever seen, Venezuela, I don't recall ever coming up in the drug trade. It was either Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Mexico, most of it. And I've heard Mexico too, where the Chinese give the cartels the raw ingredients so they can make the stuff to ship north to us, to the Americans. So, there's all kinds of stuff going on, but I don't believe for 1 second that we're in Venezuela for, when they're sitting on all those natural resources. I don't believe for 1 second it's just over drugs. So, that's kind of my 2 cents on that. Following the light, how you doing? 43 degrees in upstate New York, dog bite. Yeah, it was about 50 here today in the middle of the day. It was a good day because we had to take mom out. She had some appointments that had to be done. We took care of all of that. We got some shopping in. I went and paid my rent to the government. I mean, the property taxes, so I got ahead on quite a bit of stuff. Tyler just got a kit, started growing alfalfa sprouts for sandwich. I have thought about doing alfalfa sprouts because I can actually get some alfalfa seed, but I've never actually done it. I've done bean sprouts a couple of times, but bean sprouts kind of bother my stomach, so I don't actually do it. But I know people that do bean sprouts. And if you actually sprout wheat, that's what bulgur is. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of bulgur. I did a video way back like 5 years ago on bulgur, but what you do is you soak wheat in water just so it sprouts. And what that does is that changes the chemical composition of the wheat and basically turns it into something else. Then you can dry that bulgur and you can actually grind it, or you can cook it like a hot cereal, basically. And it's actually bulgur's very popular in like Eastern Europe, Middle East. Africa. It's something that you don't really see here so much in North America, but it is something that is viable. And I've actually taken bulgur, ground it, and I've made different kinds of breads and stuff out of that. And it is a viable way, and it basically changes the nutrients in the wheat. So if you guys have never heard of bulgur, look that up, especially if you're starting to get into sprouting stuff or whatever. Uncle Bumble is just putting together a new EDC in his man purse. Now I have something to listen while I do it. Cool. Uncle Bumble and we've talked about, setting radio and comms systems up in our vehicles. And if I ever get a newer vehicle, I'm not going to kind of do it in my old beater truck now, but when I do end up getting a new vehicle, which I'm going to probably have to do within the next couple of years, when I do get that, I am actually going to set up a dedicated, probably a CB and a GMRS unit in my vehicle, because 9 chances in 10, if I'm going to need those communication devices, I'm going to need them in my vehicle. So that's something that I've been thinking about doing, getting a decent antenna up. Another friend of mine lives down the road here. He's been experimenting with different antenna setups for his house, because he wants to have a higher wattage one for his home, so he can actually communicate with people around here like me, a couple other people, and then also across the county. He knows multiple people on basically the opposite side of the county, and we live in a quite large county, and he wants to be able to communicate with his friends over there via one repeater that is set up kind of between us. So that's kind of his game plan on that. So we're all sort of learning the comm situation together. Prepper for the age, it is one of those hydroponic systems that you can actually just sprout a lot of stuff just in a pie plate. And because that's actually what I do when I sprout beans to actually plant. That's what I do, is I actually sprout them in a pie plate. But that's a question there for Tyler. I don't know exactly how he's going about doing that. Isn't that what they did with grain to make ale? I believe that they did. If they couldn't get um the malted barley, I believe that they did. I remember reading some either in Scotland. I wish Scottish Prepper would be on here, because he would probably know. But I think that they can make some kind of beer ale out of bulgur. I want to say I have read that. Joe, has anyone seen any seeds for sale in stores? The local Walmart actually got their big old display of their Ferry Morris seeds in. I just wish Ferry Morris was a higher quality seed than what it is. I just have not had a ton of luck with Ferry Morris seed, but I did see that it was all wrapped up yet. They didn't have that out, but I did just see that recently. So I would say within probably a week to 10 days, most of those big box stores are going to have their seed displays out. Because I'll tell you something about them seed displays, because I worked around that stuff for so many years. They come in usually in some type of big display, either a 4x4 display or maybe a 12-foot run, where they have all those seeds on kind of front and back. They sell the seeds, they go through the season, and the seeds that don't sell, they get credit from the company back, and they actually throw those seeds out. So if you have a smaller store, the big box stores won't give you that stuff. They'll destroy all that stuff. But if you get a smaller store, and if you offer them just a few pennies for those seeds, they're still going to make more money off that, especially after the season. You get into August, and you got a smaller store that has those seed displays in it, and they're still like up and on the sales floor. Ask about that. I'll guarantee you they'll give you them things for a nickel a package, because it's the end of season. They'll just destroy that stuff anyway, and at least they'll get some of their money for that, because they have what they call pay for scan. And what pay for scan is a lot of vendors will do that with the big stores, your Myers, your Walmarts, Target, whatever. And what pay for scan is the vendor only gets charged for what sells. So if they send in all this merchandise and half of it sells, Walmart only pays for that other half. The other half they either destroy or that gets shipped back or the vendor takes it back or whatever. So basically the store doesn't assume the risk of that stuff, the vendor does. And that's basically how large retail works. And I don't really care for that because so much stuff, so much good viable stuff in plants and food and seeds and stuff, that stuff gets destroyed. And I just think that's just a terrible waste, but that's exactly how it is. Hey, hey, Kentucky, how you doing? Whatever Prepper. What about Rapid Radios? I have seen advertisements for them, Whatever Prepper, but I do not know. I do not know about those Rapid Radios, but um, there are advertisements all over for them. So somebody's got to be buying them. Rapid radios use cell phone signals. See, I did not know that. The kit uses a mason jar with a mesh filter on its top to soak the seeds the first night, wash and drain. Okay, that makes sense for the sprouting. Monkey Food Garden. My wife just said that the Dollar Tree has their seeds in, and that would make sense because, like I said, what I seen there was in the Walmart. Oh yeah, this is definitely garden season. Hey, Lowe's has non-GMO, organic, and others. Nice variety. That's good to know, Luke. I appreciate that. We our closest Lowe's to us is in Saginaw, and Saginaw is a ways away. We don't go to Saginaw. Yeah, we get to Saginaw maybe once a month for stuff or whatever. But now that the fruit and meat market burnt there in Bay City, uh, if we want anything from those guys, which is one of our better stores, of course, if anybody here is from mid Michigan, they'll recognize some of these names. But Jack's Fruit Market is one. They had like 5 locations, but the one, of course, closest to me burnt. And but they have other locations, and they always have really high quality meat, and they have a lot of produce in season and stuff. So like I've gotten when I've had bad years for bell peppers and I wanted to dry some bell peppers or something, or I couldn't get them locally here in my town, I'd go there and sometimes you could get them red bell peppers to dry. You could get them 3 for $1, which is, a really good price. But that's one of the kind of my go-to places for fresh food and that kind of stuff. And what's another one here that there was another one I was gonna, of course, the Amish stores. We got the Amish stores in Clare, and we got the one over by Sandusky and stuff. The Mennonite store, the Country View Bulk Foods. That's another one. We we don't buy a lot of stuff at any of the big grocery store chains. Most of the places we go are the local chains, and it absolutely drives me crazy when I see the local stores when I see them close up. And there's been 2 or 3 in small towns right around here where I'm in the last 10 years that have closed up, and that just forces people to go to them big box stores 20, 30, 40 miles away. And I'm a firm believer in small town, shopping small town. Tammy Harder, newbie here. Hello, everyone. Hey, from Minnesota. You watch things there in Minnesota. There's a lot of bad stuff going on there. I don't like anything that I'm seeing there out of Minnesota. I feel bad for the folks that live there that just want to, go about their lives and get things done. There's just always a lot of stuff that's going on there, especially in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So just be careful out there. Library Lizard, the same goes for you. Just you guys be careful. In northern Minnesota is good to go. That's just like northern Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. Yeah, and I am so convinced that if shit really does hit the fan, I am so convinced that so many things are going to go back to your local area. You're going to be your neighborhoods, your small towns, those kind of things, because there's on the broader scheme of things, the larger cities and larger areas are going to have a lot more problems. And unfortunately, I believe that is definitely happening here in 2026. Hey there, Dog Bite. How you doing? Welcome to the refugees from Minnesota. Yeah, um, I've been to Minnesota a couple different times, and I've never had any problems with the people in Minnesota. I just can't get over that there's so much problems there. It's a great state. There's a lot of natural resources there. There's a lot of farming there. Stuff like Sela, Minnesota wheat. Those are old names that go back. Sela, Minnesota flour. That's stuff that goes back, years upon years. I can remember all that stuff. It just bothers me to see, good people in those states, constantly having problems. Uh, Iowa too, yeah. Been through Iowa quite a few times. Uh, we when we used to go out to Missouri goose hunt, we would drive I-80, and of course, we would go right through the Quad Cities there, and there was a lot of cool little towns there. Like what was it? Was it Coralville? Was one that was on I-80 there that was pretty cool. And then, well, I had a lot of business when I was the gun and sporting goods manager all those years. Um, Cedar Rapids, that's where HS Hunter Specialties was based out of at the time. I think they still are, but I had a lot of personal contacts in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The same thing. A lot of the Midwestern states. All the people are all kind of the same. They got that good common sense sensibility. One of the last civil defense studies pertaining to a post-nuclear attack recovery sports your idea of governance, referring to locals. Yeah, I mean, if something goes down, you know, what's going on the other side of the country really isn't going to be what's going on in your neighborhood. That's why I constantly tell people about that. You need to know what's going on in your neighborhood. And, I've been in some cities here in Michigan, bigger cities up north, more wealthy and affluent cities. People don't even know who's living next door to them, and I can see where that's going to become a problem if anything, serious happens. You really, your neighbors, whether you like it or not, are your group. And, if you should at least have a working relationship with your neighbors if it's at all possible. And, a lot of preppers, they're kind of standoffish. They don't want to interact so much. They only want to kind of interact with people they know. And when I look at and two, this is something when it comes to prepping. I don't mind so much talking about prepping here in my local area, in my local town, people I know, whatever, because more or less everybody I know and everybody in my local town is at some level or not, they are preppers. So when I could say, hey, we're canning, 20 quarts of tomatoes tomorrow and we're putting that stuff up. Hey, we got, 50 pounds of flour. I got some beans over at the co-op and we put that stuff up for the winter, whatever, go in and, buy some ammo at the local hardware store or whatever. Hey, I'm, getting a few extra boxes of ammo because you just don't know what's going to happen, whatever. It doesn't bother me as much in the small town here where I live in because, like I said, everybody is at some level of preparedness. Everybody's a prepper one type or another. Now, if I lived in an urban environment, I'd probably have a completely different opinion on that. I would be probably a little bit more low key about that stuff. And in cities too, people don't kind of talk about that stuff because there's been different times I went, did prep shopping trips to the city and whatnot, bigger cities too in southern Michigan and whatnot, and people just go in, pay for their stuff, and leave. There's no camaraderie or friendly discussion like you have more out in the rural areas. But that's kind of my take on that. Monkey Food Garden, shop local and know the local businesses, and also know the people who are running the businesses. Because if there is something that goes down, and that's why like if there's ethnic stores or like the Mennonite Amish stores, those kind of things. If you're a regular customer there and something does go down, there's more of a chance that they're going to recognize you as a regular customer and give you a little bit more heads up on different things compared to like a big box store in a city. They don't give two shits about you, to be honest with you. Mason City was another one, Tammy, that I did talk to several people there in Mason City. In fact, some of the guys that ran the different hunts out there in Missouri, they were from that Mason City area as well. Um, Oh, no kidding, Patriot Preacher. You're from Cedar Rapids. No kidding. Yeah, I had like 3 contacts at the time. I had 3 contacts at HS, and, I used to talk to those guys in Cedar Rapids all the time, and the other one was, Lanoke, Arkansas. I had a couple of, contacts there at the ammunition factory because they made a lot of ammunition there in Lanoke, Arkansas, and they would call up and say, hey, what are the people in Michigan using for this hunt or that hunt or whatever. And I remember one time in particular, they called up. They were thinking about prototyping some muzzle loaders, some inline muzzle loaders for the muzzle loading season that we had up here, and they asked kind of my opinion, what sold, what didn't sell, whatever. And but those were good times. I had different people that I could call up and ask, and I had people here in Michigan. The people that did the what was it, Sportsman's Connection. They did maps, and they did like lake maps that showed the depth readings and stuff of all these different lakes, and they did them in for more than just Michigan, other states too. I had all these Maurice Sporting Goods. I had all these people that I could talk to about stuff. In fact, my snowshoes that are hanging behind me here, those were from Maurice Sporting Goods back in the day. Small towns are the best. Local pharmacy pick up your prescription. That's another thing. Pharmacies pharmacies get their deliveries all low key. They're unmarked vehicles as a general rule, and because typically, if a pharmacy runs out of a medication, they can typically get that medication fairly rapidly if they need it. So there's an actual, pharmaceuticals don't get shipped UPS. They get shipped on a separate courier all to their. That's another thing. Working in a store all them years that I learned, there's separate couriers for pharmaceuticals, which again in an SHTF situation that could be valuable information. Uh, Yeah, my brother delivered meds for a few years. Like I said, the it's not like like armored cars. Armored cars are all decked out, whatever. But pharmaceutical deliveries are actually very, very low key. Another thing with all the civil unrest and stuff that's going on, it reminded me something of somebody that told me this. They run a kind of a survival over in Europe. They run survival classes and stuff, and I remember them, when we were talking about civil unrest and different things that they had witnessed of different crackdowns, is because it's a whole different set of rules over in Europe compared to what it is here in the United States. You don't have quite the same rights over there that you have here to a certain extent, and they always said that if there is a group of armed uniformed individuals that are moving through an area, as a general rule you don't really want to interact with those people. You want to stay away from those people as much as possible, because as a general rule they are better trained, better armed, and they're on some type of mission to do whatever. And if you impede that in any way, you are really in danger. So, and the way the things are going, it wouldn't surprise me to see, checkpoints and stuff in the United States the way things are in certain areas. You know, bigger cities, whatever. And it goes back to, I have so many people that tell me, oh, I'm never going to the city or whatever. And I'm here to tell you, if there's a medical emergency or if there's anything, there's a whole number of things that can take place where you wake up on a whatever, a Tuesday morning, and everything's fine and dandy, and somebody has a medical emergency in your family and you have to go take them. You might end up 150 miles away by supper time in a large city that you didn't expect to be in. Those things happen every day. And people need to kind of be aware that you're not in your own area anymore. You're going into a completely different area. There can be a completely different set of I don't want to say rules, but it can be a completely different world, even 150 miles away from where you live. You get into a different area, different. different situations are taking place there. And if you don't can't read the can't read what's going on, if it's not your if it's not your area and you can't really read what's going on, it's best to stay away from that stuff as much as possible, because they don't when they're moving into their area doing whatever that they're doing, they don't care about you. Their job is to do whatever the heck they're doing. And you can see where, being avoiding those things is, kind of paramount. And that comes down to, your situational awareness, having, keeping an eye on, social media for different things that are taking place and happening. I probably have 4 or 5 different local social media, basically news sites, or basically guys like me or gals like me that just go around and kind of alert. They got a couple of scanners and they just go around and they alert to what's going on in the area. There's weather ones, and then there's ones that kind of go on crime. There's another one that's on, that monitors like traffic accidents and stuff. I'm kind of logged into all of those, so I can keep an eye on not only my area where I am here, out in the country. I got my local county ones that I listen to, but then also kind of my nearest larger cities. I also have those where I keep an eye on as well. And that way you have a little bit of an idea what you're doing, where you're going. Like if there's something going on in one of the cities and we got an appointment or something there and we're heading there, we know, hey, you know what, there's this took place over in this particular neighborhood. Well, instead of driving into that problem unaware of what's going on, ahead of time, hey, there's something going on here. I'm going to avoid that entirely. Even if I got to drive 15 miles around, I just don't want to be part of that. And that's kind of, I guess, the point what I'm trying to make here. Uncle Bumble, that the one bad thing about rural America, the best medical care is always an hour plus away, and that is exactly the truth. You can live out in the sticks and you can live that rural lifestyle, and it's great. A good friend of mine passed away. He lived up in the UP. He passed away this spring unexpectedly. He was a little bit older, but there was absolutely nothing wrong with him until he passed away. And basically, the first thing, he was in the middle of the Upper Peninsula, and the first thing they did, they put him on a helicopter and flew him to Green Bay. So because that's the nearest large medical center was in Green Bay, several hundred miles away. So that's, unfortunately, that is the one thing in rural America is the hospitals out here are first aid stations, and they are to stabilize you and then pawn you off on a larger medical facility someplace else, usually in a large city. And for us here in the lower peninsula of Michigan, it's places like Ann Arbor, U of M, Hurley and Flint, Ascension Genesis in Grand Blanc, which is a suburb of Flint. Uh, oh, what's the other one? There's Henry Ford. There's Henry Ford, and Henry Ford has a bunch of different larger hospitals in like Mount Clemens, and they're all that's all the southern part of the lower peninsula of Michigan. Jay, several years ago, they had checkpoints for less reasons than what you're describing, and be absolutely exploited use of power and ego-driven enforcement. Yeah, again, it goes back to what my friend told me from over there in Europe years ago. Armed uniformed men that are on a mission, they're running that checkpoint. They're probably better trained than you are, have more weapons than you do, and they're ornery because they don't want to be there. So now there's multiple problems where you could see there could be multiple problems there. And, wearing anything that crosses them or goes against what they want, you're basically asking for trouble. And then the other thing, everybody's carrying a cell phone around nowadays. I've had people tell me that they don't have any cell phones or whatever, but as a majority of people, people got some kind of cell phone. The first thing they're going to do if they would stop you is they take your cell phone and they're going to look whatever's on your cell phone, what pictures you had, where you're at, and you can see where that could cause, if you're the opposite of what whoever's running the checkpoint is, you can see where that can be a serious problem and could be potentially even life threatening for you and whoever's with you. Oh yeah, most hospitals are older neighborhoods. Yeah, and there was actually older hospitals in our towns or our larger cities around here that have been tore down. And hospitals, just like anything else, are all for profit. So they want to make money. Well, building new hospital buildings all over the place isn't making them money. So they sometimes let things run down too. I remember when I was in the hospital there a couple of years ago, I went from, my room because they told me to walk. So I was walking all around the hospital because that's what they wanted me to do. Right. And I somehow got myself down in the motor pool where the ambulances were coming in and people were, um, clocking in and clocking out, for their shift or whatever. And if you can remember the movie RoboCop, where they were kind of in like the motor pool in the police station in RoboCop, that's what the motor pool looked like at this particular hospital that I was in. Had a gritty inner city militarized look to it. There were armed guards around, there were grates and gates and do not enter areas. And yeah, it looked like I had wandered and here I'm in my, butt hanging out with my um, hospital gown on, pushing my large IV thing, and here I am in the middle of this. I'm like, holy shit, what did I get myself into? And the one guy recognized me because he worked on the floor where I was, because I had already been there like 5, 6 days. And he said, "What are you doing down here?" And I said, "Well, they told me to walk, so I was wandering around." He said, "You need to come with me." And we went. I didn't even go back up the elevator I came down in. I went to like a service elevator, and he took me back up to my floor and said, "Don't go back down there again." That's just one of my many experiences over the years. Hey there, Hawkmeyer, how you doing? Lou Potts, New England Dollar Tree has their seeds out. That's good to know. Oh yeah, Hawkmeyer. Yeah, I back in about 2006 there for quite a long time. I'd say at least 10 years. Every time I got paid, I purchased an extra box of ammunition and just stockpile like that. And I shot anything up, then I went ahead and I replaced that right away. And I never shot a box up unless I had another box to replace it. And that kept me at a level, and that's kind of the comfortable level that I'm at. Tammy Hart of the plant in Tennessee that went kaboom had certain elements that would be a lower availability, so ammo prices will probably jump in March, I'm told. I've heard ammo is going up too, and they're still having problems with nitrocellulose. And nitrocellulose is a very important component in gunpowder. And there are still issues with that going down. So, if the price on ammo comes down a little bit and you got a little extra money and you plan on using that stuff up for training or hunting or whatever, or for your carry piece or whatever, it's good to pick that stuff up. I just look at it as, yeah, the prices have fluctuated over the years, but all that stuff that I purchased years ago, most of that stuff I paid half of what the going rate is now. So I figure I just made money on all of that stuff. Son said everyone hates New York City, but that's where we travel to save our life. And it's the same way with Detroit. Like I said, Henry Ford Hospital, Henry Ford Health Systems. That's all down in Detroit. Those are all rough neighborhoods. And I did that when we did Uncle Bumble and I did that doing that urban bug out, get home walk, whatever. And I said that in that particular video, and I had some blowback on that from some of the comments that hospitals are always in the worst neighborhoods. And that's, to this day, that is sort of how it still is. That's something that I just have accepted over the years. Like if I'm going down to the hospital, we're kind of switched on. We know, that it's not a good place, and we don't want to wander off the beaten fat. We don't want to go 5 blocks one way or another on some of these hospitals that we have to go to, because those are really bad neighborhoods around there. Private equity bought a lot of the smaller hospitals and shut them down. Oh, I believe that. Just like private equity ruined the firearms manufacturing, like Remington and stuff. That Seabris bought all those firearms manufacturers up, gutted all the stuff, took all the assets, and then sold the shells that were left. And that really affected the quality control and stuff on firearms and accessories and stuff. Big Green Remington was the big one. I never ever would have thought that Remington would have went the way that it did. And, to this day, the stuff that's put out by Remington now is not near as good as the stuff that was put out, 15, 20 years ago, because the quality control just isn't there. The stuff's been cheap. They've had to move the factories. The people that built the stuff back then, they couldn't pull up, they went from, New York to Tennessee, and there's older people that were building stuff there and stuff. They can't pull up their whole lives and move to another state, when they're late 50s like me. You're not going to have that same craftsmanship in that stuff, and that really ruined a lot of firearms manufacturers. And on that note too, I wanted to mention this too real quick before I forget. I'm not going to be putting out a magazine rebuilding video. I did a video back about a little over a month ago already, basically showing how to rebuild a magazine, how to change the followers out, how to clean the inside of the magazines, how to check to see if the springs are good, because firearms run on magazines. The the magazine is probably the most important thing to the reliability of different firearms. And I wanted to show people how you could upgrade and how you could clean those out and looking for defects and whatever. And I have tried editing that video 3 different times, and every time the platform absolutely beats me down, and I'm not going to put that video out, because when they demonetize stuff like that, what ended up happening is they'll demonetize it for you, but at the end of that video they'll still play a commercial and they'll get paid for it. They just don't pay the content creator. And I'm just not gonna do that. So that is kind of that. But I wanted to mention that, because I did mention that in a couple other live streams. I really wanted to put that out for you guys and show you guys how to do that, but it's kind of not worth it. And I also got there's a couple of videos that I'm going to be doing for you guys. I'm going to be doing an old school smoked summer sausage video, where I'm going to do the muslin casings. I am going to have some homemade muslin casings. Muslin cloth is what they used. A lot of places still use it, but now they have more synthetic fibrous casings when they're making summer sausage and stuff. And but the old school way is you would take muslin and you would sew that into a tube. That's what you would stuff your meat into. You'd hang that in the smoker, and as that smoked, the muslin is porous, so the muslin would allow the smoke to go in, some of the fat to come out, and that was the old school way that they would make summer sausage. So I got a video of that I'm going to be doing for you guys here shortly. Plus, I want to do the penny can stove, because that came up in the videos of basically how to make a little alcohol stove out of a couple of old cans. And then you can either use like that heat, the dry gas. You can use 91% isopropyl alcohol in those stoves to basically heat stuff. So you're basically making a homemade sterno, and a homemade sterno stove is basically what that is. But I want to do a video on that as well. Uncle Bubble, wasn't Remington get split between two different companies? One bought the ammo. Yeah, the Remington ammunition, and the same thing with Winchester. Remington ammunition is one company, and Remington Firearms is another company. DuPont owned Remington Ammunition, and it's the same thing with Winchester. U.S. Repeating Arms at the time was what Winchester is, and now Winchester name, U.S. Repeating name, got bought by FN, and Winchester now isn't what Winchester was 50 years ago. And Olin, also a chemical manufacturing company, is the one that owns Winchester Ammunition. And then back in the day, ATK was a lot of like your Spear, Federal, those companies, CCI, those were actually all under the conglomerate ATK. I'm not sure what they are anymore now, but that was all one company, even though they were different brands. That was all one company. But yeah, I really wanted to do a video for you guys showing you how to rebuild magazines, change followers and stuff, but it's not worth it. Oh yeah, a lot of stiff stuff popping off, and I'm curious what's going on with that over in Iran, and I don't know. Makes me want, but then they started talking about the Greenland stuff, so it makes me wonder if the talk about Greenland stuff isn't a smoke screen, that they want to do some kind of operation in Iran, because everything is disinformation. I don't even like saying that word on this platform, but it's all, you don't know what's going on. And I'm going to use this example. How do you know who your father is? Because your mother told you. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on. I'm not over there. I'm not seeing what's going on in these different situations. So, I'm taking what people are telling me online, whatever. But, that stuff can be manipulated. So I look at everything that I'm told online is a lie until I can prove it otherwise. And unfortunately, that is what technology has done to the world we live in now. You can't really believe everything you see or read. And then two, I try to be careful when I'm watching stuff. If it stirs like an emotional response, then I kind of take that for a grain of I take that with a grain of salt. Okay, who would want me to be pissed off at this particular event or incident or whatever? What is their agenda behind that? So I don't want to really say any more than that. That's probably enough for this right here. But I think everybody that's watching this can understand what I'm trying to say. We live in a very information rich age, but we don't know who's providing all that stuff. And again, that goes back to how do you know who your father is? Because your mother told you. So that I'm just going to leave it at that. But I think everybody can understand what I'm trying to say here. Emdo, I have a test at the hospital. They were offering 8 p.m. appointments in downtown Grand Rapids. I asked if there was security in the ramp or if I could bring a firearm, and that didn't go over well. Well, in that situation, I would tell the security at the hospital, I want to be, and I've told this to different, especially female people, friends of mine, and family members and stuff. If you're at the hospital and it's the middle of the night and something went down, you're in the emergency room and things have stabilized, and you're going back out to your vehicle, do not be afraid to say to security, "Hey, I would like somebody to escort me out to my vehicle because I don't want to become a statistic." And kind of be forceful about it. And that is too. This is another bit of prepper advice when you're dealing with people and stuff. Don't take your first no. If you ask something and they tell you no, we can't do that, don't let it stop there. If you need to have something done or you're sure about something, you need to push that a little bit further. Then you say, well, you know what? I want to talk to somebody else then. And don't take that first no as the answer. Push that out a little bit further, if that makes sense to everybody, how I'm explaining that here. Hawkmeyer, YouTube has been terrible on my channel. I received a strike for squirrel hunting vid. I did a squirrel hunting video too, actually, back in the day, and I took it one step further. We got the squirrel and I dressed it off camera, field dressed it off camera, and then I actually brought it back to my fire pit and I cooked it in the cast iron over the fire pit. So it was like a 20-minute long video. I had the same problem. They threw all kinds of crap my way over that, and I ended up I made that video private. I didn't have that out anymore, but I had the exact same problem, Hawk. So I know exactly where you're coming from. Yeah, Kentucky. I wish I could control the commercials on my live streams and stuff, and I can't. They just you either monetize it or you don't, and then they go from there. I would just as soon have like one commercial at the beginning of the live stream, and then that's it. And then maybe at the end when it's all wraps up and done, maybe another one, and just leave it at that. But I wish the content creators, and then two, I wish I had a little bit of control on what advertisements that they run on my videos. I wish they'd say, okay, here's, your content is this, here's 20 companies, which of these 20 companies would you like to have run, commercials run on your videos? And I would go through and say, this company I like, this one's good to go. No, this one isn't. And I could choose that stuff. I don't see why not. YouTube's still getting paid one way or another, but unfortunately, that's how it goes. But I wish I had some say in what they do with my content. But unfortunately, that's just the game that you play. But I still look at it with YouTube. I still look at it as the information that I'm putting out, because I put out so much practical information. I'm putting that information out basically to help people that didn't have the experiences I had growing up, people that, realize, hey, you know what? I've lived in a city my whole life and things aren't really the way I would like them to be. I can really see where things are going south. I'd like to be a little bit more self-sufficient. I really don't know how. I don't know how to grow a garden. I don't know how to grind corn. I don't know how to do this stuff. And they punch it in on YouTube. I want to be there to help them, to tutor them through that kind of stuff, because I feel that, good people can benefit from what I know. And I don't want that knowledge to die with me, like I've seen so much knowledge, die with the old timers around here that passed away. But and YouTube is really the only way to put that stuff out in kind of a inexpensive manner where people can just look that stuff up, and I've had people say, go to Patreon or whatever. And at this point, I want what I know to be out there for people to use and utilize and to benefit them. And unfortunately, if you want to do that kind of stuff, you pretty much are stuck with just YouTube. So yeah, don't get caught up in the distractions. And that's true. They do. And that's another thing, like if there's some kind of thing going on with celebrities, like this celebrity did that or whatever, that's another thing. I look a little bit deeper. Okay, they've been running this celebrity news for the last 3 days. What's actually happening? Why are they all of a sudden? Why is this celebrity news all of a sudden the mainstream deal here? And a lot of times there's something else that's going down that they want to sweep under the rug to a certain extent, and that's how they do it. They put a smoke screen up with a celebrity news and gossip or whatever. Getting a tree topped by a military plane tonight. That's something we have not had a lot of military aircraft, and probably the last 6 weeks, I haven't seen any military aircraft. And pretty much all summer and all fall, I've seen all kinds of military aircraft around here. And of course, they do their summer training for the National Guard and that kind of stuff. But I haven't seen a lot of military activity in my area here in the last about 6 weeks. Oh yeah, the hospital didn't like me for bringing in a multi-tool. Boy, I gotta. When my wife was in the hospital earlier this year, I walked in the main entrance to the hospital where she was, and I had. Do I even have it down here? Anyway, I got so many different ones, but I basically had my work pocket knife, which is like this. And they seen that clip because I had left. Literally, I left my job and I went right up there to see my wife. And I walked in the main entrance, and boy, I had a security guard. Oh, what do you got in your pocket? So I said, well, I got my work knife. I just came from work. And that's another thing. When somebody sees me carrying a pocket knife and they say anything that could possibly be a weapon or whatnot, I don't say that. I said, no, this is my knife. I use this for work. This is a tool. This isn't a weapon. Get that, this isn't used for malicious stuff here. It's not for self-defense or anything. This is a tool that I use for work. I make that really, really clear when, I'm discussing that with potential people, whatever. And he says, well, you got to leave that here, blah, blah. I said, you know what? I don't want any problems. I'll take it out. I'll put it in my truck and I'll come back in. And I did. Well, then I had another guy do the same thing, but I had learned my lesson. I left my pocket knife in the truck, and he jumped my shit over this because he seen the clip on my flashlight. And I said, this is a flashlight. I am not going into a large building without my flashlight in case the power goes out. Well, then he didn't say anything. He let me go then. But yeah, they will cause you problems. And the emergency rooms, um, all the emergency rooms I know nowadays in the larger hospitals that I go into, they all got, you got to, you get wanded. There's metal detectors on all that stuff. So, you got, your earbuds with your whatever, like my flashlight, whatever, you got to drop that in the plastic tote, before you walk through the thing. And then God forbid, if you got a metal belt buckle on, like I do, cause I wear a heavy belt, cause, I'm working all day. It's the same thing. You got to take your belt off so they can, make sure you don't have anything or whatever. Hey there, Hudson Valley. Good to see you. I was just discussing the negative aspects of being a content creator. I'm sure Hudson Valley has many more situations like that. They've really beat down Hudson Valley over the years. And, again, you try to put out good information to help people out and you get punished for it. No good deed goes unpunished. Hey there, NWO. Hello from Western Colorado. One of these days, I'm going to get out to Colorado. I flew over it once, but unfortunately, I've never got to actually be boots on the ground there. Hey, roaming prepper, how you doing, buddy? Yeah, Portland. I got some old Kershaw knives that were not Kershaw, Gerber knives that were made in Portland. And every time I look at that Portland on those knives, I know how things have changed out there and not for the better. BS Spooky. I get Blackhawks every day. See, Blackhawks, we don't see a lot here. It's Chinooks that I see here, and a couple different times I've seen the Cobra, the Super Cobra helicopters. But yeah, Blackhawks, I think I've only seen Blackhawks 2 or 3 times here. Heavy presence of the military of the skies in GR today. Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids has a lot of technology. It has a lot of medical stuff in it. Grand Rapids is kind of one of those low key towns that has, there has a lot of stuff going on that you kind of just don't talk about. I heard military aircraft ice fishing. We had people that went out on the ice already, and they went through. They had to rescue a couple of different people out on the lake here already. So, hey, Jody from Michigan, how you doing? Yeah, my knife is a tool and a fidget spinner, and that's when anybody asks me about my knife, like a security or anything like that. That's a tool. That's for my job. That's for work. That's not for, and it would go the same for, any other situation, security or whatnot. I just say that that's a knife that I use for work, and I leave it at that. I just kind of because things can get misconstrued one way or another. There's no metal detectors in Traverse City hospitals. Well, that's good. Whatever, prepper. Munson doesn't have metal detectors in yet. I'm trying to think if I ever been in a Munson. I don't think I've ever been in a Munson facility because I'm a little bit further south. But we have definitely seen the hospitals and stuff up there in TC. But down here, Saginaw, Bay City, Flint, Grand Blanc, Mount Clemens, there's metal detectors in all them. Oh, I appreciate that, Roaming Prepper. And the same thing, Roaming Prepper's got a good channel, and Hudson Valley's got a good channel. Boy, you guys get a chance, get over there and check those guys' content out as well. We're all kind of in the same boat, trying to make the world a better place with what we're doing here. Hey there, Koi Lin, how you doing? My cousin out west, when he lived in Utah, there he they had a big air base on was it the I think it was the west side of Salt Lake, and that was the first time I ever seen an Apache helicopter flying in the local area there. That was the only time I ever seen one of them. I thought that was pretty cool. Jackie, hello, MR from Southwest Michigan. First time on your live, praying for everyone else today. Well, prayers are good. We all need prayers. Congratulations on being a grandpa. Oh yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome being a grandpa. Me and my wife are certainly enjoying being grandparents, and plus I've all the baby rearing information that we had, we it's like riding a bike. You don't forget. And our daughter, she's calling us and asking us different questions. And boy, like, hey, we took care of that problem or this or whatever. It was this or that. And I made them a big, in fact, I got a video on that too. I made a big baby first aid kit, an infant first aid kit, and gave it to them, and that's really helped them out. So I still remember kind of how to do that stuff. Munson's a good healthcare, eh? Yeah, it's good to know whatever prepper if I'm ever up there and I need something. It's good to know that Munson's good to go. Munson's the kind of northern Michigan, the northern part of the lower peninsula of Michigan. All the hospitals up there, those that are all run by a company called Munson. Washburn, how you doing, buddy? Oh, the Mrs. Wages worked out for you. That's good. That's good. In fact, we went through so much spaghetti sauce and pizza sauce already. I'm almost getting ready to do another batch. Probably about 2 months. I'm going to have to do another batch because we've actually used quite a bit. My family's all basically converted over. They like the Mrs. Wages. I do a little doctrine on it too. I put a little extra stuff in it, but I've been doing the Mrs. Wages spaghetti sauce, and everybody likes that better than any other spaghetti sauce out there. So we've just been going that route. Oh yeah, grandchildren. Grandchildren are the best. I can't wait till they get a little bit older when they're walking and talking, and I can take them out in the woods and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Everybody really needs to watch their six because at the rate things are going, anything is possible. It don't matter whether it's, cyber, whether it's, civil unrest, whether it's, problems with banking or economic issues. I could probably, right off the top of my head, I can probably think of 10 different potential problems that could basically pop off at any moment. Oh yeah, it amazes me that people get in trouble for stuff like flashlights. No one ever questions my knitting needles. Um, there was there was a gal I knew. She went to a beautician school. It was down in Detroit, and one of the things that they carried down there for they carried them for protection, but it was what they used in the school were straight razors because they had to learn how to shave with straight razors, and they all carried straight razors when they went back and forth, and that was because it was gals going in and out, even in the later hours in the evening and stuff, they all carried straight razors with their stuff that they used for beautician school. So that was a way that they got around the rules of that stuff. Hey there, Practical Rifleman. I've been seeing you've been putting out some more content lately, and hopefully that new chainsaw is treating you well. Boy, that's a dandy what you got there. Practical Rifleman, he got himself a big 400 steel chainsaw. So, any predictions? I don't know. Sunset, it's always hard to predict. I don't like prices the way they are. I don't like what I'm seeing with the slowing down of the economy. I certainly don't like all the civil unrest that's going around the country right now, and the potential for conflict. You got Ukraine, you got Venezuela, you got the entire Middle East. There's potential for any there's potential for attacks in Europe on any given day. There's the whole thing with NATO and Russia going back and forth. The Eastern European countries, like Poland and the Baltic states and stuff, they're they're never going to go back to the Soviet era one way or another. And Poland in particular is really, they're really militarizing themselves. There's even been talk of putting nuclear weapons back in, or putting nuclear weapons into Poland. There's never been nuclear weapons there, but there's talk of that going on. And then of course China is always the big thing. If anything pops off with Taiwan and they slap sanctions on China, which I don't think that they could even possibly do, but if they would put sanctions on China, what they did on Russia with Ukraine, everything we have is made in China. And they've shipped all that stuff overseas in the last 20 years. China makes everything now. It took 20 years to get to this point. It's going to get 20 years to get us back out of that and be a little bit more self-sufficient as a country. And if something goes up with China, the West is really kind of in a very dire straits, and they put themselves in that position. There were certain businessmen back 30, 40 years ago that started all this stuff that have put us in this position by shipping everything over there. And if any one of those things starts, one of the other ones, because it's going to compound. Like they said about at the beginning here, somebody asked about the Venezuela and the oil for China. Why do you think we went in there? That's to put the screw to China to a certain extent. Well, I'm still waiting. What's going to be the retaliation for that? They're going to stop shipping us this. They're going to stop making that for us. What's there's going to be a flip side to that because it's constantly back and forth. And I think this whole thing with Venezuela, I think that kind of caught a lot of countries and stuff off guard. So they're still probably formulating what they're going to do. So I would say the next 6 weeks, if there's going to be anything that's going to kind of major take off in the world stage, so to speak, it's going to be within probably the next 6 weeks. And, what better time to, prep? And the way things have been ever since 2020, there's no reason why people shouldn't have a couple weeks worth of food at their house, even if it's just basic stuff. Have a little extra medication, keep your vehicles, gassed up, have some type of communication. Know what's going on in your area. If something doesn't look right to you, it probably doesn't look right to you. You know, if your gut instinct says, "Hey, this doesn't look right," you know, take it at that. You know, you better err on the side of caution, so to speak. So yeah, there's multiple things that are definitely possibilities, and if one thing happens, it's going to be multiple things. That's basically how I look at it. Practical rifleman. I ran 3 tranks through it yesterday. There's nothing like a new chainsaw, I tell you. Love it so far. Awesome. And another shutdown potentially coming in 3 weeks. Yeah, they were talking about that government shutdowns again, the last one. And you know, all that stuff affects the economy. You know, that's I can everywhere I look around here locally by me, I can see where the economy is slowing down. Well, guys, I appreciate you all being here tonight. It's been I've been on here about an hour. I don't want to take any more of your guys' time, but I had some subscribers ask me to do a live stream, have a little chat with you guys here tonight. And I'm more than if I got the time, I'm more than willing to do that. And if you guys if you guys are ready for a live stream, or if you want me to have one, just mention it in the comments of the other videos there, and I'll see what I can definitely do about that. As long as I don't have something going on or looking after somebody, I can help you guys out with that. But appreciate all you guys coming here. I think we got a really good community here. I think people always like sharing. There's always good tips and stuff that are shared in the comments, and you know, we all learn from each other. I've learned so much being on YouTube over the years. You know, the information I've put out, I've gained at least that much information back for my own personal preparedness from everybody in the comments over the years as well. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys out there. You know, Dirt Farmer, Hawk, Jackie, Practical Rifleman, Karen, Sunset, Jenny, Jim, Survival, Monkey Food Garden. I always appreciate you modding for me there, Monkey Food Garden. Jody, whatever, Prepper. I appreciate Uncle Bumble, Kentucky. I always appreciate you guys being here and sharing the time with me. But anyway, this is Modern Refugee. Appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys always get some information, some entertainment out of my videos here. And you guys have a good one.